Well, thanks, Billy, so much for being on Trading Fours, and I appreciate it. And you and I have known each other for a long time. We'll probably get to that in a minute, but let's start out. I got to ask, why'd you write the book?
I co-wrote the book with Simon Taylor because he called me and asked me. It's
And
as easy as that. It was his idea. So I did an interview probably 2 years ago, Jamie, with Sound on Sound magazine, which now is like the audio Bible. It used to be Mix magazine when we were growing up. Remember that thing?
yep.
Now, unfortunately, that's turned into like a pamphlet that's about that thin, and all it is advertisements. But Sound on Sound interviewed me, and this gentleman over in the United Kingdom said, "Hey," he contacted me, just cold called me and said, "I'm an amateur recording engineer,
Right.
but I come from the book publishing world. I've done that for decades. That's my life. I'm in the book publishing world." And he goes, "I really like your approach to mixing and how you are able to do it really fast and efficiently and whatnot." And he goes, "As far as I know, nobody has done like a book regarding like template mixing and mastering, and to the point where if you plug in the exact settings that we say, you will sound identical to me, whether you want to or not, you know?" So we went back and forth. I sent him screenshots, channel strips with audio in them so he could see what was going on. And he kind of wrote the book using my language and my words and stuff. And then I would proofread it. He would send back chapter by chapter, and I would proof it and change some stuff and whatnot. And then at the very end of it, he goes, "Okay, we can self-publish, or we can go for a publishing deal." And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" He goes, "Well, anybody can self-publish." He goes, "But the splits are better. You make a little more money because you own it outright. But," he goes, "if you get a publishing deal, it's just like getting a record deal. It's or a writing deal. It gives you a little bit of validation and whatnot." So I said, "Whatever you want to do." So he goes, "Okay." And like a month went by, and all of a sudden I get a phone call. He's like, "Hey, Bill, we got a publishing deal." And
How
I'm
cool is
like,
that?
Fantastic. I've been chasing record deals my whole life. I'm in the audio business, can't get arrested. And here I am. I jump, write one book, and there you go. I get a publishing deal, full blown. So,
And it hasn't been out that long, but you're doing really well, not only with reviews, but what are you, number one, right?
yeah, it keeps popping up all over the world in different countries. But in the United States, it was just number one in like music and sound recording. So I was like just flattered that anybody even gives a hoot what I think. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's back up a little bit. I think it's kind of important to do. You and I are roughly the same age. We're within 6 months of each other, and I do remember spending some time in the recording studio with you at Tom Larson's in Lincoln, Nebraska, back in the day, right?
Master tracks, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And I think he had 32 tracks, which was like state of the art at the time,
right.
all on tape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the world, just like with everything else, has gone just at light speed. So, my podcast, I use Reaper as my DAW, which is your digital audio workstation. There's that. There's Pro Tools. There's a bazillion things. So people, the days of when we used to try to record music on a Tascam, 4-channel and try to bounce channels, those days are long gone. That you can get a really nice sounding recording from your home, and this book can help with that, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. All you do is uh I lay out every single channel, and I give specific frequencies, specific curves, everything. It's like coming and sitting next to me for a day, and you ask every single question you wanted to know. So, and what I did before I did this, I actually made a template, right, of my exact settings and gave three of my engineering buddies the exact samples I use. And I said, "Do me a favor before I put myself out of business for good, with one book, just end a career."
Right.
Um, and I said, "Copy me. Do me a favor. Try to mimic me." And they're like, "No problem." And these guys are good engineers, like better than I am. So they all sent me back their mixes, and they all ended up calling a few days later, and they're like, all right, we started going down here doing exactly what Decker does, but Decker goes like this. My ears take me over here. So I kept going, do that, do that. And they're like, no, 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 we want to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. That was awkward.
No,
Modern tech. See,
I
we
just
were just talking about modern technology and how much it sucks compared to 2-inch tape. 2-inch tape doesn't just cut out. It might rip back in the day.
No,
But
yeah, finish. You were right in mid sentence, so just let me. You said what you. Yeah, they called you and it divulged. It went. They went one way. They went
oh
the
yeah,
other
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. And no matter how hard they tried to mimic me, their ears always pulled them to their comfort zone, to what they do. So I think it was my fault. I think it was my fault.
What'd you do?
Because I didn't turn off my notifications. So
Ah,
anytime I ever get an email or a text, I got this brand new phone. Okay, that brings me to another thing we should talk about.
right.
Anyway, unless you can clone somebody's ears, you're never going to sound like them. I've tried to sound like Chris Ward Alge, Kevin Churko. I've tried to do like make myself sound like the guy that makes Nickelback Randy. You can't do it. So I was like, okay, no problem. So I'm going to put out the book.
So I'm interested in. So I've read the book. Even a schmo like me can read this book. I'm obviously not anywhere in your orbit, but let's talk about some of the things that I found kind of really interesting. So the first thing I found, and I'm a guitar player, so I don't know
Mm-hmm.
much about drums, but the fact that you never use the actual recorded drum on a drum track, you always replace it with previous drums. Explain why that's important.
I do on the kick. I replace the kick
Right.
100% with 3 samples. One's like a clicky high, one's got like a dance kick, and then the other one's kind of got this whoosh, this push sound that I described. But the snare, back early in my mixing career, I actually replaced kick, snare, and toms 100%. And I found, after getting yelled at, not by me realizing how bad it sounded, but by people yelling at me like, dude, that sounds so fake. You can't do that. So I've started, oh geez, back 2010, 2008, 2009. I take the reel, here's my samples over here, level wise. And then I take the reel, and because drummers are always bouncing their sticks and they're rolling and moving around. And then if they do a press roll or something, I'll bring the reel up and down. So this is just doing the 2s and the 4s for the most part, the hard hits.
Right.
And this guy is kind of adding the realism. And to be honest with you, I can get it so balanced good in there, or perfectly, where you won't even know it's a sample. It just sounds like, because you're hearing all these little ghost notes and stuff that the drummer's doing. So
Yeah. Well, I just
yeah,
thought that was really interesting because then you kind of lost me because you went into hertz rates and cutting it
I
all
did.
off.
But a good example of me not using any real snare is a song I mixed for Steve Holy called Brand New Girlfriend. And that one is 100% replaced. Rodney Atkins, Going Through Hell, is 100% replaced. Now,
Those did okay, right? They did okay on the charts.
they did okay. They did all right.
Yeah.
And I actually mixed that one before Pro Tools even had delay compensation. So here I am adding in all these samples. Everything's out of phase. The whole thing, when I hear it on the radio, it's just like, if you sub that thing to mono, it just goes, it's like a tidal wave of phase. It's awful. But it didn't matter. A good song always seems to find its way to the top. So even I couldn't kill that.
All right, let's talk vocals. So you double the vocals on everything. And
I
by
don't.
that, 2 tracks, correct? That's what you do.
Yes. So I mix really hot, and I learned early on that I would start hitting all the red. Even today, I hit red all the time. So a lot of people put their master fader at 0, and then they mix up into that there. Well, I always there's a command in Pro Tools that when you hit Option and you click the fader, it snaps it up to 0, unity gain. I got so used to doing that and starting really hot that I had to keep bringing down my 2 bus, my master fader. to the point where I just learned how to deal. I felt more comfortable with stuff up here at 0 rather than the master fader at 0. So a guy named Scott Hendricks taught me. He produces like Blake Shelton. He's A&R over at Warner Brothers. He once showed me, because he's an engineer himself. He did like Brooks and Dunn, Boot Scoot and Boogie, and John Michael Montgomery stuff. If you bring everything down and then you push back up your returns, you can build in headroom, but it doesn't hit those effect sends quite as hot. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it does change the sound a little bit. So long time ago, I read an interview where Chris Ordalgi was like, "No, I ain't gonna. I'm mixing too hot. No, I'm out of headroom. I'm just gonna molt that vocal channel into another one, bring up the fader. Now it's twice as loud. Put it on 2 channels. So that's all I do is I duplicate it, and it makes it twice as loud. So that built me in headroom to get above the track. So
So,
it was kind of just like a stupid accident, to be honest with you.
but you've been doing it for a long time now, right?
Yeah, so it's not a double, it's a clone. It's actually just twice as loud because it's 2 faders of the same exact thing. And I made a series of plugins, and on the vocal plugin, there's a number 1 button and a number 2. And if you hit 2, it just makes it twice as loud. That's all it does. I'll be honest.
It's like going on to 11 and Spinal Tap.
Yes, yes. Louder is better, Jamie. Louder is always better.
Well,
Don't fool yourself.
You know, I like to play loud, so no
Yes.
problem there. So let's. You're really big on compression. There's a lot of talk on your book about compression. So tell us why that's important.
I actually didn't figure out compression until really late in my career. I don't consider myself an engineer till I was in my 30s. Even though I was doing it in my 20s, I had no idea. I still don't even know what I'm doing, to be honest with you. But a light bulb went off probably, God, I'll be honest, I was in my 40s before I understood compression. I will not see. I didn't get to mentor under anybody. I didn't get to assist under anybody. I'm 100% self-taught. I went to an audio school,
Right.
but a lot of times, some of the best knowledge you get is out in the real world, you know. And so I had to figure it out, just asking questions. But once I figured out compression, I learned that you can not only use it to level stuff and contain stuff, but you can also use it to shape sounds. So it's almost like an effect. You can alter the sound of things using compression. And to be perfectly honest, I probably limit more than I actually compress these days. So, especially when you're doing a lot of rap or pop music, all that stuff comes prepackaged. All the samples, they're good to go. They're already doctored all up, and all you need to do is just kind of put them in their little space, maybe give them a little high end or low end, you know. But other than that, I tend to just limit more often not than compress. But it was a huge day when I figured out how to actually understand and work compression. It was like I graduated from high school or college. You know, I wasn't a kid anymore. I was like, okay, I'm an adult. I'm an adult mixer now. But it took me way longer than most people.
Right. So I want to. I figured out every time you dropped off when we had a little technical difficulties, which again is why this is live. We're not faking it. We lost the stream, but the stream is up. So for people, I will put this entire interview up when we're done. So if you missed the beginning, you can hear it. But we're live now on there. And I've been to your studio in Nashville. You were very nice to let me there. And a thing that tickled me the most, that made me just burst out laughing, was the boombox that I remember you having in your apartment above Spaghetti Works in Lincoln, Nebraska, is now a tool that you utilize. So this is fascinating. And there's a picture in the book of the actual boombox. So for people that are not as mature as we are, the boombox in the 80s was the state of the art thing that you took around. So tell people how you utilize this for recording and why.
I actually use it just as a point of reference. So anybody can use anything to mix on. You can mix on these little earbuds, as long as you know them and you're familiar with them. I am familiar with that boombox in my studio. It doesn't do low end real good, but it does high end. So I know if something is too bright, and I know if my vocals are sitting in the right spot. I also check in my car. I'm a religious. I actually buy cars according to how the stereo sounds. So I'm not a big car guy, but I don't care what kind of car it is, as long as I like the stereo and it feels good, I'll get it. So I was fascinated with a friend of mine. He had an Audi A6. He was a big songwriter, got this huge payday, wrote a bunch of #1 songs. He had the most amazing car. So years down the road, I bought a 10-year-old version of his car. I bought like a 2001 Audi A6 because I love the speakers in it. And it turned out to be the biggest piece of garbage car I've ever drove in my life. I mean, you go in to fix a light bulb, it's like $500, Oh, okay, turn signals out, oh, $500. Dome lights out, $500. I mean, I'm done with the $500 service thing. So I got rid of that. I got familiar with another vehicle that I've had forever. I've got this little Acura TSX, and it's probably, I think I got it in 2006. And I was driving home tonight, and the right front speaker actually crackles. It's banging into the thing. I think it's blown. I mean, I've been checking mixes in that thing for 15 years, and I just realized, oh, my right front speaker is blown. It's like rubbing into the side of the car. I'm like, oh, that's encouraging, isn't it? Thanks,
That's
Bill.
hilarious.
Thanks, Bill.
Those $1 million ears. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Anything you get used to, though, you can reference on. So I don't have the most expensive set of monitors in my studio. I've got 2 sets. I've got Wathen Audios that are custom made down in Texas, that are great. They remind me of old tannoys. They're real spongy and kind of fat and puffy. They sound great. You can like blast Def Leppard through it, or anything Mutt Lange's ever done. They sound great. And then I've got Mackeys that I've used from day one. So,
well, I
and
think
then the boombox.
To your point, though, you've got those AirPods in your ear right now. For most people in this day and era, that's what they listen to music through, right? They don't have the subwoofer and the whole thing. Like, that's why you're checking to make sure that it sounds good with that kind of component, correct?
Right. And I have a subwoofer that I've used. God, I had it over at Soundstage, and I actually bought it from them when I moved studios. But I'm using a subwoofer from, I think, the 70s, maybe the 80s. It's a Quested audio sub, and this thing's it's an 18-inch Quest. It's like, geez, I looked at it the other day. I think it's like $4,000 to replace this thing, just because they don't make it. There's hardly any left. And if I didn't have that, I would be lost. I've made my whole career on this subwoofer, and it's barely on, and I've got the crossover set at a certain level that if I didn't have that, I'd be lost. So I wouldn't know what to do.
Right. So for people that don't know, you and I did the math the other day. It kind of blew my mind. We have known each other for 35 years, which is insane.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We went to college together. We used to hang out together.
Totally.
The
the thing that I always remember about you, Billy, was just you always, we all played music and we had guitars and we did all that stuff, but you were really always interested in the sound. You remember you had that keyboard and you were always messing with it and how do I record and all that stuff. So it's obviously something that you've felt about passionately. And I actually remember when you got the Full Sail thing in the mail, you didn't want to use your criminal justice degree from the University of Nebraska, right? You had other plans.
Looks good hanging on my wall, though. So. Actually, if I could go back in time, I honestly would have majored in music, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is I tune vocals a lot of times. 9 times out of 10, if I'm doing a record, everything comes to a mixer already taken care of. It's been edited, it's been locked, it's been recorded. It's all smoothed out. All I have to do is blend it all in. Vocals are tuned, everything's perfect. But a lot of times I'll get stuff that just comes in. Say I'm doing a demo or an independent record and people just record, they send it to me. And if I could go back and have a theory degree, that would be invaluable for what I do right now. And the only reason I didn't major in music, because I actually looked into it, but you had to take calculus, and I
Yeah.
hate math with a
Yep.
passion.
Yep.
And criminal justice was the only major I could find that doesn't have calculus. You never had to take any math. I actually looked into being a marine biologist. I was going to go like swim with sharks and be whatever, you know.
Right.
And but you had to have calculus, and I detest math with a passion.
No, I totally get it. That's why I did journalism for a major. I had enough math in high school. I didn't have to do it.
But
But
yeah, if I could have that theory degree, uh, quick little story. There's a studio musician named Ilya Toshinski. He's from Russia. He played in a band called the Bering Straits back in the day. And he's one of the top session guys in Nashville, has been for a long time. Guitar player, utility, banjo, mando, ukulele, anything strings he can do, right?
Mhm.
So he was actually producing something or whatnot in the studio, and I was mixing it. He came in to close it. He's like, "Oh, I forgot to tune the vocals. Do me a favor." And usually when I tune vocals, I draw it all out. It takes about an hour, right? And make it perfect. He's like, "No, no, no, we don't have time for that. Just put it on the auto mode." And he's like, "Put it in the key of D minor, diminished, augmented, fragmented fifth.
Right.
Take this note out, take this note, add the ball bearings, the flux capacitor, hit play." And I hit play, and it was perfect. I'm like, "Dude, how do you do that? That's unbelievable. If I would have known that, you don't have no idea how much time I would save." He's like, "Decker, that's theory. That's music theory."
Right.
And I'm like, oh, face palm emoji right there. Boom.
So
I'm
do you
just
ever?
like,
That's what Rick Beato. That's his whole thing, right? Have you watched any of his YouTube stuff?
huh.
So Rick Beato is this producer guy. He's in Atlanta.
Okay.
He's done a lot of producing stuff, but he is Mr. Theory. And so he goes
Okay.
through and he does like what makes a song great, right?
Right.
And he'll go through and say, because they use this chord progression and they did this stuff like that. And it's really great for edification. So, he's done, Van Halen, he's done Toto, he's done Alice in Chains, I think he's on episode like 100. But hearing somebody, I have a little bit of theory background. My dad was actually taught at the University of Nebraska, and I took piano for a number of years, but it's only to a point. But it's almost like having a roadmap in a way, right? Like it demystifies, and like you said, if you know what you're doing, it can move a lot quicker.
Right. Well, my funny thing is they always say you live through your children, right? If you fail yourself, you can rebirth yourself through your children. My daughter is a singer songwriter, and she's got the gift. She's actually, unfortunately, she has the gift. I tried to say, "Don't you want to be like a doctor or teacher or something like that?"
Right.
No, I want to do music. So anyway, I talked her in to go into college just for the experience, because it kind of grows you up, makes you learn to adult, be on your own. But I said, do something that will at least further what you want to do. So she's majoring in music. She wants to sing, she wants to write songs, which she is. And but she's getting a theory degree. So I actually called her from the studio the other day and asked her a question. She's like, "Duh, Dad. Duh, don't you know that?" She's like, "You're in the music business." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't have a theory degree."
No, you just knew the 3 chords of rock and roll when you played in a band in college, right?
That's right. GCD. That's it.
So let's talk a little bit about, it's a long, people want to know how to get in the music business and stuff like that. I know that you started out as an intern in, what was it, Virginia Beach? Where were you?
Virginia Beach. I actually had a job in Virginia Beach. Yeah, I was an overnight overdub guy. I was doing that there, working on rap and hip hop. And before that, I was out in San Francisco doing alt rock at a studio. Before that, I was in the Virgin Islands for about 3 weeks till I ran out of money and realized I was working for a drug dealer and was probably going to die.
You need to write a
It
book,
was
brother.
yeah, it was funny when I was on an internship there, and the studio was all it was on the island of St. Martin, right?
It's beautiful
And
there.
oh, unbelievable! I had no idea how expensive it was, and we're talking 1991, maybe something like
Right.
that, 90, 91. Anyway, I'm on the island, and they gave me a little scooter to go down to like navigate and go to the grocery store and something. And they said, whatever you do, just make sure you say this name. And they gave me this guy's name, Tonka. Whatever you do, just say you work for Tonka. And I'm like, okay. So I went down to the grocery store, and it was kind of in a seedy part. I guess I took a wrong turn like my third day down there. And these dudes came up, and they were like, oh, easy target. This guy's a tourist, And I just got off my scooter. I'm like, hey, fellas, I just came from Tonka Studio. They all backed up. It was like the parting of the Red Sea, and I just walked right in the grocery store. I mean, I thought they were gonna like spit shine up the scooter for me, be like, "Here you go, sir. It's waxed and polished. There you go." So
That's
there
hilarious.
there are some perks. So
That's right. So San Francisco, when was that? What were the years?
that was that same year because I ran out of money in Virginia Beach, or not Virginia Beach. I ran out of money in St. Martin, and I had to finish my internship. So they traded me the internship for room and board. It was unpaid, but they let me stay in this efficiency apartment above the studio. So every day, my job, I mean, you know how bad San Francisco's gotten lately with just homeless and drugs. I mean, beautiful city, great
Right.
people. I'm not bagging San
No, I
Francisco at all,
I have a great San
but
Francisco story when you're done. So
my daily routine would be I would come down, and this was in the middle of summer, so it's hot as hell. I would come down, and I would have to. This studio was located down in the Market District, kind of a seedy part of town, like a warehouse district
right.
that was trying to come back. So I would come down, and I had to hose off the sidewalk all the human waste from the homeless, and sweep up needles, hypodermic needles from all the drug use way back in the day. So I didn't want to step on a needle, right? Because it was like, oh, you're going to poke yourself, you're going to get some.
Right.
So, but it was hot as hell. So I had shorts and like a tank top on. And back in the 90s, shorts were a little shorter than they are now. But I'd put on my cowboy boots so I wouldn't step on a needle because it wouldn't come through. So here I am walking around in short shorts, a tank top, and cowboy boots in San Francisco. And I got a garden hose every morning. People are just waving, walking by. It's like, yeah, fit right in, dude.
You're like the newest member of the Village People.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here's my San Francisco story, and then we can move on.
All
So
right.
same
All
kind
right.
of same kind. It's beautiful there. It's gorgeous, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of. I mean, and I've been everywhere. I've been to New York. I've been to LA. I've been to Chicago. I've been,
Right.
there's and people always like, well, they have a homeless problem. It's like you haven't seen a homeless problem until you go to San
Oh,
Francisco. And my wife Kelly, which we're both married to Kelly's,
sure.
she's a lawyer, and I just tagged along on her business trip because hey, go to San Francisco for a few days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm in my jogging gear because I'm going to go for a jog while she has to work, and she's in a nice business suit thing and has on just like those low business shoes, and all of a sudden she like slips. And I was like, what happened? And she stepped in this huge thing of human shit all,
Oh,
all over her shoe, all over things. So it's always like when people tell me how great San Francisco is, it's just what it will always remind me of. Plus, it's just unbelievably expensive. It's just not a cheap place to live.
no, it's over the top.
So, besides the glamorous part of show business, uh, is there some people that I know you've done a ton and you've worked with a ton of people. Are there some people out there that you like think, man, I'd love to mix them? There's some bands or individuals or just people you'd like to work with that you haven't yet?
Yes, I think we were actually talking about that earlier, and before we got on, and you mentioned Nancy Wilson's coming up on one of your things, right?
Yeah, it's Nancy Wilson from Heart is supposed to be on this Schmoes podcast, which is just stupid how that happened.
Oh, I tell you what, I had the biggest crush on Nancy Wilson. We went on college sneak. I was in a fraternity and we snuck out, and sneaks are when you like all the freshmen go to a different campus in a different city and they spend the weekend. We went to Iowa State, I think, and we stayed at the fraternity over there. But we had activities planned all week and stuff. But I found out Hart was playing that weekend, so I snuck away from all the activities and bought a ticket with a buddy of mine, and we went and saw Hart. And I remember I was like the dude that was like 50,000 feet up in the nosebleed, but I took off my shirt when she started singing Never, and I was like fist pumping, you know what I mean? Way back in the day. So tell Nancy when she comes on the show, you've got a mutual stalker friend of hers, all right? Let her know I'm not going to like send ricin in the email or something if I send her a love note or something like that.
You just want to mix a record. That's it.
I just want to mix her record. Yeah, I just want to say, hi, Nance. Remember me? Oh yeah, you were that dude way back in '90 up in the. I think I remember. Yeah. I remember you.
Yeah, I saw them like 2 years ago. You know, this is the great thing about Groupon now. Well, before the pandemic, but
right.
I've seen more great bands with a Groupon for like 25. I mean, when's the last time you paid a real ticket price for $25? But through Groupon, so it was them and Joan Jett opened for 25
really?
bucks. And
wow.
They're still fabulous. You know, some people,
absolutely.
Some people that get older, they lose some of their range and some of that stuff, and not these two. I mean, they can sing, you know, they did Dog and Butterfly, just the two of them and the guitar, and that was it. And just the harmonies, it's unbelievable. They're just a great band.
Yeah, and funny you talk about Groupon and the price of concert tickets today. That reminds me of another thing we could segue into, but 99% of every act I mix asks for live stems. So, say we mix a record, we will, when it's done, the one you hear on the radio is what we call the mix, right? And then we always provide them with a TV track, which is the mix minus the lead vocal. So it's like a karaoke track.
Right.
And they call it a TV track in case they ever have to do like a morning show or whatnot by themselves. They can't do a live band. They can sing to the track, you know, and you've got the backgrounds. The only thing missing is the lead vocal. In LA, they call it a mix minus. So a mix minus the lead vocal was what they asked for in like film and TV and stuff. Then we also provide them with, and I say we because I've got an assistant that kind of helps me bounce down all this stuff and takes care of all the grunt work. I'm way above the grunt work, Jamie. I'm way too important, famous, and actually good looking
there
to
you
be.
go.
Yeah, I don't need to bother about. No, I'm teasing. So they'll also get an instrumental mix, which is just no vocals whatsoever. So if they want to bring a background singer, they can do the karaoke with live background. Then they want, almost everybody requires full stems, which means, okay, so we've got bass guitar, drums, acoustic guitar, keyboard. They want each individual instrument bounced down with all the record sound on it so they can perform it live and add that in. So if ever you go to a concert and you see the drummer wearing headphones or a little earpiece, he's actually playing to a click track that's locked to these studio pristine recordings, like the backgrounds, you know, you've got like a choir behind you. You don't have a choir on stage, but you hear a choir.
Right.
Everybody does that now. And you want to know why they're doing that? It's because ticket prices are so expensive. If you and I pay $200 to go see a concert, you want to get your money's worth. And if they sound horrible, you're going to be like, I'm never buying their record again. I'm never going to their concert again. So they use studio recordings in the background and supplement their live show to fatten it up.
Yeah.
That happens religiously. The last time I've seen a band that has not used live tracks was just like, even bar bands down on Lower Broadway, you know, our famous Lower Broadway. that has all the honky tonks and stuff. They even use live tracks these days. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Well, I actually had Jason Faulkner on recently on the podcast, and he's a big recording guy and a nerd, and he said that on Frampton Comes Alive, the joke was always Frampton Comes Alive at Westwood Studios. That like the only thing that was really from the live event was the crowd, right?
Oh,
There's all
that's
these
funny.
Yeah, there's all these tricks and trades things that and and I think there was this with Van Halen, there was always this very long, long after Michael Anthony was out of the band. Amazingly, the harmonies sounded a lot like Michael Anthony, and apparently David Lee Roth is using them right now. Well, before COVID, when he was opening up for Kiss, same kind of thing. And they asked Michael, and Michael Anthony didn't even know about it.
Oh,
Right?
that's funny. That's funny. I got called to mix. I've done tons of live concerts. Like I'll get sent stuff to mix that's Darius Rucker on Sirius XM, and it's like a concert from Charlotte or something like that. So his manager called me and said, "Hey, we have this live show that Darius just did. We want you to mix it, Decker." And they never called me to mix his records, but they called me to mix like when he was on The Bachelor, when he sang on that, on the ACM Awards. I did some stuff. Anyway, they sent me this live concert. So I'm like, man, I need to really fatten this up. And I've got sound effects and crowd noises from anywhere. So I've got like Wembley Stadium in like in Europe, like 25, 30,000 people just and I blended it in behind this thing, and it starts out the kick drum's like doo, 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 and I got all these fake claps. It's like doo, doo. I mean, it just sounds monstrous. Like we will rock you. I mixed 16 songs, spent 2 days, 3 days layering all this crowd, and I would blend it in like it sounded like a football stadium if they scored a touchdown.
Right.
Turned it in. I thought, man, this is my odyssey. I have outdone myself, dude. This is my Iliad. This is my opus. I kid you not. I turn it in. Within 15 minutes, the phone rings.
That's not
It's
good.
Darius. It's Darius's manager. He goes, dude, this sounds really good. We have a problem. I said, what's that? He goes, Darius was only playing a goddamn 200-seat crowd. He goes, he was in a club with 200 people. What do you got like this football stadium? What do you? So I'm like, okay.
Road to hell, man. It's paved with good intentions. So
sorry for cursing. Didn't mean to use the Lord's name in vain. I'm sorry. I was quoting him. I was quoting him though.
Yeah, that's okay.
I was quoting him.
Well, I never.
He was a New Yorker. He was a New Yorker. He always yelled at me.
Oh, I bet. So let's sell some books. What's the best way to buy your book, Billy? Is it on Amazon? Where else can they get it?
You can get it on Amazon. You can go to Books A Million. You can go to Barnes and Noble. You could probably steal it from Walmart if you could get out without getting caught. I wouldn't pay for it. I mean, steal it if you can.
And it's not. How much is it? I bought it on the Kindle because I read it on the Kindle. It was like $12 or $15. I don't remember what I paid.
Yeah, I think it's weird because every country it's priced differently. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes it's 17, sometimes it's 22, sometimes it's 30, but a lot of times it's like that's pounds or euros. So I don't know the translation for that. But yeah.
Before we go, 2021, what's on tap for you? I know you're busy. Do you have anything coming down the pike you're excited about to work on, or do you not know until like the day of and it just shows up in your email inbox?
Yeah, usually it just shows up. I don't even think about it anymore. I did just mix a kid named Andrew Janakis, who was on The Voice, and I think he blew up on TikTok, and that's on radio right now, and it's doing pretty good. I did some new stuff for Rodney Atkins, and he's got some stuff I believe that's going to be on not Westwood, what's the Kevin Costner, Yellowstone.
Right.
Yellowstone. We just mixed some stuff for them too, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, other than that, I just have audio, will mix. Whoever sends me something, I end up mixing. So
Yeah, I'm sure you get horrified when I send you stuff.
no, I got
Sounds
something
like
that
shit. What is he doing?
somebody sent me some. I do have a new band I mixed, a metal band that's really cool called Relic. It's a female lead singer, and it's not screamo, but it's super heavy, like drop B, drop A guitar tuning. I mean, it's low.
Right.
So, but it's real melodic, but it's it's kind of fun. That stuff's cool.
So also, just so everybody knows, you are a man of many talents. I have one of the cutting boards that you make, the Decker board.
Ah,
You know
yes,
that,
yes,
and
yes.
my wife uses it all the time. And my sister was just here last weekend, and that's why I bugged you and texted you because she freaked out. Was like, I have to have one of these. And so that's why I had to reach out and be like, can you order this? And you were like, you're cool and do that. So you don't only do that, but people can find that right up on the website. They can also, you've done huge. Who was the guy? Was it the guy in Lit? Who'd you build the huge table for? There was somebody you built this enormous table for.
Yeah, Jeremy Popoff. He bought a property here in Nashville, and they ended up moving full time. He's like, Decker, I mixed a couple things for him. He's like, I need a kitchen table. I saw on Facebook where you're a woodworker. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So I said, find me what you want. So he got this pottery barn design, and I basically just went downtown and got an old 1800s building that got knocked down because they're knocking everything down in Nashville these days and putting up these high rises or these tall, skinny Airbnbs, the condos, you know. But we got wood joists, floor joists from this 1800s building. And so, yeah, I built him a farm table for him and his lovely wife. And yeah, it's just something fun to do. I think everybody needs a hobby. Everybody needs to be able to get away from what you do. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't even listen to music when I'm out there building tables or cutting boards and stuff. Sometimes I will listen to music, but it's not what I do every day. I like put on like dance music, like EDM or house music or something like that, or like thrash metal, you know, just something angry where you can just like stomp around the driveway real quick and sand cutting boards or whatnot. So,
No, it's great. They're really
but
cool, man. You do a really nice job.
oh, thank you, thank you,
And
thank you. Yeah,
you got a motorcycle now too. I don't know how the hell that happened, but I'm watching you on Facebook. You build a motorcycle.
I do. Yeah, I bought one that was like broken, and I got really bored this last summer. So I'm like, you know what? I failed seventh grade small engines in high school, or maybe it was ninth grade. I think it was high school small engine shop. You know, because my lawnmower engine didn't start. You get a broken one, you have to tear it apart, put it back together, and I'm like, you know what? I am going to redeem myself. So I just went to YouTube, found an old chainsaw, got it running. It was like from the 80s, rebuilt it. It was locked up. I'm like, okay, that was easy. So I did a boat motor, did that, got it going, spit water out, no problem. All right, what's the next progression? Oh, let's do a motorcycle. Now I probably got more into it than it's, you know, I can
Worth?
even sell it for. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But it was fun. And my kid, my son, funny enough, he's like, Dad, I want that motorcycle. That'd be a great bar hopper for me down here. I'm like, son, do you really want to ride the first bike somebody learned to build off of YouTube? No, you're going to be driving down the road and the front tire's going to fall off. You don't want that. You don't want that, kid.
No, and you think I don't think your wife would be real happy about him riding that, being the first motorcycle.
No, not at all. So I've gone back through it and tightened her all up, got it spit shine. I'm actually going to sell it and buy another broken one and do it again because it's really fun. So,
No,
and
that's
like I
great.
said, you need a hobby. You got to get away from the music. You know, if you do music 9 times out of 10 every day, you're just going to burn out. You know, so you got to decompress.
No, and
So,
I had Chris McLaren on, who, you know, Saigon Kick fame, and
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Chris rebuilds. I mean, guitars that look like somebody threw them off the top of the Empire State Building. Like they just look destroyed, and he's like he can completely build them back, and I mean,
Really?
snapped off necks, the whole nine, and they look great. He does a
Oh,
great
that's
job.
amazing. That's amazing. Well, do me a favor. Tell Nancy Wilson when she's on if she wants to. If she needs a motorcycle, tell her I'll be happy to build one. No, I'm teasing.
So
Stalker Bill.
no,
Out.
that's fine. Last thing before we go, because I think the last year has been really hard on people, right? It's
Yeah.
been a long, tough year, especially for musicians too, right?
Right.
And
Except Nancy Wilson.
except for Nancy Wilson. She's fabulous. Yeah, but we have both had some health issues. And we can talk about this as much or not, and I can cut it out later or stuff. But I think hope is a really important thing.
Absolutely.
I think hope helps, and I see some people that get down and stuff. So, I went through some serious health issues with Lyme disease and co-infections and all kinds of stuff, and I was sick as a dog for a long time.
Right. I remember that. I remember you telling me all about that.
Right, and for you, I got this call out of the blue about you and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer, correct?
Yeah.
And you went through chemo.
You
went through the whole 9 yards. Like this was, and I think I was one of the few people. I mean, you told your family and stuff too, but I was probably one of the few outsiders that knew about this because you had to keep a business going.
Yeah, and I had stage 3 cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It just came out of the blue. We went to the beach down in Florida, and I got home from the beach, and my left underarm was like swollen up. I had a bump. It was like puffy, and I told everybody, I was like, I looked at my kids and whatnot. I said, I think I got stung by a jellyfish. It's like puffy here. Well, 3 weeks later, it turned into like a tennis ball, and I went in and got it biopsied, and they're like, you got cancer, So I was like, well, probably the best thing to do. They can't cut it out because it's your lymph nodes. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is when all your lymph nodes just go into overdrive for some reason, and they all start getting big. So the only way to cure it is to shrink them, and that's with chemo. So yeah, I signed up and did the basically roughly 6 months of chemo, and it was funny because I couldn't figure out how to not lose work. So I could tell you, one of my friends, and you'd be like, oh, let's not bug Decker, let's not call him with projects, he's going through chemo, we don't want to trouble him.
Right.
Unintentionally, I lose business. And then there's other people I'd like call somebody else, and they'd be like, there ain't no way in hell we're calling Decker. He's going through chemo. He can't be in his right mind. There's no way. So I lose business. So I figured, you know what? The best thing to do is just keep quiet and lay low. Well, I did that, and luckily, 9 times out of 10, I mix unattended, meaning people don't come in. They just send me stuff so I can fly under the radar all day. But there's this one songwriter, his name's Anthony Smith in Nashville. And he always loves to come in the studio and give me demo works. He and I have known each other for, all the way back, like 2000. So anyway, he comes in, and it was just right when I shaved my head, right? But I always wore a ball cap to kind of like lay low. And he comes in, he's like, he's just kind of looking, and gives me his music. I mix it. He goes away. All right. Now, by the end of chemo, chemo beats you up, right? Afterwards,
Totally.
Yeah. I was very lucky. I didn't get sick. I never threw up or anything like that. Didn't have fatigue I got very lucky. Yeah. But anyway, right at the very last month of chemo, he comes in. He gives me the music again. He's the only one that pops in, right? Gives me a song. He goes, sits down, looks at me. He's like, and he usually doesn't say anything. He goes, Decker. Nobody calls me by my first name. It's always like Decker.
Totally.
He's like, Decker. He's like, I can understand you like changing up hairstyles. That's cool. He's like, dude, you got no eyebrows. What the hell's going on? I said, well. Oh. So anyway, I told him. He's like, yeah, I figured something was going on.
Right. But I think it's good to know that things can get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can seem like you're in the depths of hell and things are doing, but things can improve, and that hope is a powerful thing. And hearing these types of stories where things get better, I think is important. And I do, for the record, yes, I left you alone, but I did send you Runza and Valentino's. That's the kind of friend I am.
You did. And to be honest, Jamie, probably one of the coolest things that happened through that whole thing is I was always up late, right? Because you're always taking like prednisone and stuff like that after you get the chemo. So for a couple days, you're jacked up on like, ooh, you just go, go, go. Anybody that's ever done prednisone, it just, ooh, kind of wires you, you know? So I was always be up late for like 2 or 3 days afterwards. After I hit chemo, then it would wear down for 3 weeks. But I would actually spend time on a lot of these audio forums that I'm on. I mean, I've got plugins, books, so I'm always on this stuff. But I actually was able to talk to a couple kids that I could tell. I actually lost my father way back in the day to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of familiar with some of the signs and stuff like that. But being on some of these forums, I actually recognized a couple kids, and I feel fortunate enough to have noticed that. And because it was an audio forum, uh, I guess a lot of these kids would look up to me or whatnot, but I actually reached out to them. And I tell you what, to this day, I've got two kids that were this close to just about calling it quits. And by being able to recognize the signs, they've turned around 100%. And to this day, we always keep in touch, you know? So if I never do anything ever important, books, plug-in, none of that matters. But just because of what I've done and been able to do, to be able to help like those two kids in particular, it's there you go. I don't need to do anything else, you know. I'm good
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah. Amen to
So
that. Life is a
hope
precious,
hope is good though. Yeah, you got to have hope.
and life is a
So
precious thing and stuff. So I really appreciate the time. Um, you know, we've been friends for a long time. I always enjoy talking to you. You're just a good, positive, great, just a good guy, dude. It's just always fun to talk to you. I'm always happy to hear how well you've done. It's not surprising to me. I knew how good your ear was back in the day. So
cool.
I people want to check out the book. It will be in the show links. Please buy it. It's a great help. Billy basically is almost like giving you the recipe, right? How to, instead of it being a cake, it's a recipe on how to make a great sounding track that you can take it and do really good things with. So I highly recommend it. And Bill, it's always good to see you. Glad things are good. Tell the family hello, and we'll be in touch soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. And I wish I could say the feelings are mutual, but just so your audience knows, you actually paid me with Runza's and Valentino's Pizza. You said you would send me another installment if I came on your podcast. So I said, you know, we're really not friends. I don't even know you.
Yeah.
I'm like pretending we've known each other no, I'm teasing everybody. No. But if
No,
you do want to send me some more Valentinos and Runza, we actually did get a Taco John's finally down here in
that
Nashville.
made you
So
very happy, didn't it?
oh, six pack in a pound. Six
Well,
pack in a
I'm
pound.
supposed to be out there in August for a podcast convention. Who knew there was such a thing? So I'll come when I come out in August. I will buy it. I'll go through the drive-through on the way, get on the plane, drop it off to you. How about that?
I will give you a big fat.
You can just buy me a beer.
Okay, I'll buy you a beer. I'll
All
buy
right,
you a
bud.
beer.
Have a good night. Tell everybody hello.
You bet. Thanks for having
All
me
right.
on, Jim.
All right. Take care, bud. Bye bye.
Bye bye.